Bringing the passion for the Pacific League, it's PACast, the officially unofficial podcast of the Pacific League English YouTube channel. Hosted by Jimbo Bernicki, Michael Bealey, and Gabe Lerman.
So, welcome to week 2 of the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Chiba Bernicki, here with Gabe Lerman. How you doing, Gabe?
Doing well, thanks. Just keeping an eye on certain ball games going on right now because I do not have the stamina to wake up at 5 in the morning like you do, good friend.
And, of course, my partner in crime at the 5 a.m. games, Mr. Michael Bealey. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I drank 3 coffees today, so we're pretty awake over here.
Well, there you go. Alrighty. So, it's time for our second week in the can. I thought our first show did really well. And what do you guys want to talk about today? Gabe, we'll start with you.
Well, you know I have my history corner to come up with, but I want to wait a little bit before we get into that segment. I do want to congratulate some historical marks being done over the last little while. Takayuki Kishi of the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles won his 150th game back on May 2nd. He's the 51st player in NPB history to get that many. His first was all the way back in 2007, 16 years ago, when he was with the Seibu Lions. So we've talked about Rakuten having that veterans strategy, keeping Takahiro Norimoto, extending Masahiro Tanaka. Kishi has been an important part of that rotation out in Sendai.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And Michael, what about you? What have you been keeping an eye on this week?
I was actually keeping an eye on nippon-ham. They made an interesting move when they found a new foreign import domestically, if you had seen that.
How so?
They picked up Alan Hansen, who was already playing baseball in Japan, but in the Baseball Challenge League.
Oh, okay, very cool.
Yeah, the name rings a bell because I think he's a former Blue Jay. He's bounced around the minors a little bit. Let me take a look. The Dominican player has logged time with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Chicago White Sox, the San Francisco Giants, where he got 110 games. And then his last game in the majors, 2019, at the age of 26, 18 with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, he's one of those journeymen that just seems to be like, where there's baseball, he'll be there. Because he was playing in Mexico for a season. It might have been a couple of seasons. Now he's in, the Japanese independent leagues, and now he's on the nippon-ham farm team in Kamagaya. So
that's pretty cool. Good for him. It's cool to see that develop in the week. And for me personally, I want to get your guys' take on this. I'm wondering so far, 1 month into the season, who do you have as MVP of the league? Because to me, it kind of comes down to personally 2 options, and there's a bit of sort of question of philosophy. On the one hand, Roki Sasaki, I think, is sort of an obvious choice, right? Because he hasn't had a bad outing. He's completely dominated from head to toe. And, I kind of almost want to say, like, on the negative side, how many wins has he led to, but he hasn't lost a game, right? It's just, he can't score runs because, he's a pitcher in the Pacific League. But on the other hand, I like voting. There's a pitcher's award, and I think MVP should usually go to a hitter unless there's a pitcher that totally takes over, like Yamamoto last year, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, Yamamoto has entered the chat.
Yeah, for sure. No, it can happen, but I like to err on the side of position players. And Yuki Yanagita so far this season has been incredible. Totally a return to form, single-handedly winning games in some cases. Like last week, I think he scored like 4 of the 6 runs and getting 2 home runs in a game, and just batting 351, 471 on base percentage. Like, he's really just playing so good right now that if I had to pick someone who wasn't Roki Sasaki, I would probably lean towards him. What do you guys think?
He's also the safest choice for a jersey if you want to acquire one for the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, because he signed with them for 7 seasons, one of the largest extensions in PL history. I don't remember when that was completed, but
isn't he he's like 34?
He had an extension on his extension at one point, I remember.
That's true, yeah, just in the last offseason. He's 34, so he's still going to be playing for this club. He is 34, but he also is a previous 2-time MVP, 6-time Japan Series champion, 4 times Japan Series MVP, 6-time Golden Glover, 7-time Best 9. Like, there's very little left for Yanagita to do, but he keeps excelling. I mean, at some point, the Hall of Fame is going to call his number. Well, that's how good he is.
That's what I think that goes without saying. It's just a question of how many more rings he's going to put on before he gets there. And, so far the Hawks have been pretty good this season. So what do you guys think, Gabe? What do you think for MVP wise?
I mean, Yanagita was going to be my call as well, but just to be an iconoclast and just to do something different, you got to go with the guy who's leading in home runs and RBIs. Awards voters do like counting stats. And Yutaro Sugimoto is back in MVP form, especially, as mentioned last week, with Tomoya Mori in as protection.
That is true. And, just a coincidence. It's a Buffalo.
Okay, slight homer pick. Yeah.
What about you, Michael? What do you think?
So I am partial to three people, of course, Sasaki and Yanagita, and I was also thinking Sugimoto as well. The voters, as Gabe said, they do like their counting stats. I do have Sasaki leading. I don't know how the Japanese writers vote, but I think if you were to knock points for Sasaki, is that it doesn't seem that he goes deep into games, which here, in America, that's something that we expect at this point. But in Japan, they still kind of expect the starter to go to, 7, 8 innings. Not only that, I do remember, a few years ago, it's just, it still comes up from time to time on social media that it seems obvious to us that, generational talent like him, you protect him any way you can. If he's not feeling well, you don't pitch him. If he's got an issue, you don't pitch him. You pull him, you make sure his arm's fine. But amongst some of the older Japanese fans, comes across like he's being coddled a bit too much, which I personally disagree with. He was pulled from the game his last start over a blister. Now they're saying he'll miss another start. So I mean that's something the writers might knock against him, even though it makes total sense to us. But
And that's the game that he went 5 innings.
he went
And
5 innings,
struck out 12 guys. Yeah.
and I think he had a no hitter going.
Yeah, no hits, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts over 5 innings. Oh, literally about as mathematically perfect a game as you can have.
The other consideration, and to Michael's point, the Eiji Sawamura Award, the Japanese equivalent of the Cy Young, does have criteria for winning it. One of those is complete games. They expect you to have 10 or more. Ditto for innings pitched, 200 or more. Those are completely unheard of numbers in the majors, in part because the majors use a 5-man rotation with a much shorter leash, as opposed to in Japan, where because all games are usually Tuesday through Sunday, it's a 6-man rotation. So you do have that much additional time to recover after throwing 140 pitches in a pinch.
And if anyone's wondering about that criteria, with the Sawamura Award, it's not so much as similar to the Cy Young Award where, it's the best pitcher. It's pitchers that can meet the criteria of Eiji Sawamura. It just so happens that that criteria was set, in the 1920s and the 1930s. So that's where the 10, complete games and all these other, antiquated stats and criteria come from. It's because they're quite literally, hallmarks that were met, in the 30s.
I kind of like that though. I think there's a real interesting spirit about that award. I mean, I overall probably prefer the American method of just sort of pick the best pitcher, as it were.
It gets even more interesting when you have seasons where the writers, the voting committee, which are all former award winners, just decide, nobody deserved it this year. We're not giving one out.
They can do that? Okay,
that most recently happened in 2019. Yeah.
I like that as an idea. I say that, and then when the Hall of Fame does it, I hate it. So
the council has voted and they declared everybody is mid this season. Goodbye.
I want to loop back to no hitters for a second, because there was a potential opportunity for something spectacular over the last week. On May the 4th, no Star Wars references here, the Hokkaido nippon-ham fighters took a combined no-hitter into the 9th inning against the Seibu Lions. Up 1-0. They got their one run courtesy of Chusei Manami on a solo shot in the top of the 7th. This is at Seibu's ballpark at Balloon Dome. Kitayama, the starter for the fighters, went 6 innings, walked 2, struck out 5. Brian Rodriguez came in for a 7th inning of relief. Clean sheet, 1 strikeout. Taisho Tamai and Naoya Miyanishi combined to complete the 8th. Seigi Tanaka gets 2 strikeouts, then gives up a hit to Aito in Raito. And then after giving up another hit to Shohei Suzuki, strikes out Shuta Tonosaki. He strikes out the side, but still, they got steamed, man. I mean, last season was kind of an aberration in that we had 5 no-hitters in NPB, most of those in the Pacific League. So we came this close. Good to see Seigi Tanaka still picking up the save, though.
Oh, did you see? I think it was today.
Tomohisa Ozaki, yes.
Yes, yeah, the one hitter. Wow, that was one heck of a performance.
Not just one hitter, only 2 walks, 13 strikeouts.
Yeah, holy smokes. That's a game.
Yeah, it's impressive, a showing from Ozaki, especially going toe-to-toe with Hiromi Ito, one of those three aces of the fighters rotation. They walked that one off in a countryside game in Kumamoto.
I like the countryside games. I just love that idea. I love that teams go around and like play in more parochial sort of areas for the country fans. I wish it'd be cool if Major League teams did that little
Outside of exhibition period, because I remember the Blue Jays would swing by Montreal as for their last exhibition
yeah,
games.
yeah, no. Regular season game or two, Oh, that'd be fun.
Well, I think that's part and parcel of the fact that there are only 12 NPB teams, and they are very much concentrated in the major cities.
That's
Other
true.
ballparks do exist in that 20 to 30,000 person range that can accommodate an NPB away game. Places like Niigata, Nagano, Kumamoto, where the Hawks and Fighters were tussling earlier today, Kobe, which actually has the Buffaloes with a couple of scheduled games there. The one that I think is most impressive, though, is Shizuoka. Kusanagi Stadium is one of the ones that Babe Ruth played in during his barnstorming tours back in the 1920s and 1930s.
Wow, okay.
Jingu, Koshien, and Shizuoka are the only active ballparks still left from that tour.
And which team does that? Sorry.
For Shizuoka, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's two teams in the other league.
Okay. What I think is cool about the traveling team thing is that like you have a team like the Lions, for example, they'll play a game or two in the like Saitama Prefectural Stadium, which is like just a little more farther out than their normal place. And it's a lot like the Koshien, like it's got a lot more of an old school atmosphere. But then they'll also go play a game in the Tokyo Dome. Like you give all their fans, even the ones who are in bigger cities, still a chance to go see their team. Like it'd be cool if like what would be an example, if like the White Sox played in Miami or something,
Guaranteed no attendance.
Well, there'd probably still be a little more than Marlins games.
Keep in mind, this is the first year the majors have gone with a balanced schedule, so every team will play each other team at least once. It's not like in years past where you got matched up to one division per year, and Interleague was only with that one division.
Oh, I didn't know that. Actually, I didn't know they changed that too. A lot of changes this year. Not that I've even really noticed them because I'm always watching NPB instead of MLB.
It is a better game, I'll give you that much.
Love bunting.
We're not biased.
Team bunting.
No. Yeah, those countryside games, part of the reason that, they do that is NPB teams have actually relocated quite a lot throughout its, long history.
Mm-hmm.
Including the before NPB there was just the Japanese Professional League, I think it was called. And there's a lot of teams that just straight up don't exist. They didn't merge, they didn't rename, they just don't exist anymore. And a lot of them were relocated, in those countryside towns. And of course, going back in time, a lot of the players did come from those countryside towns. So you got to keep the game growing. So they'll do whatever they can to bring the game to those small towns. So, just keep it going.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That seems as good of a time as any to butt in with Gabe's history lesson.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing.
Thank you for stepping on the segue, Gabe. Yes, thank you. So we're talking about the posting system, and this is a fun topic because it involves the Pacific League at two distinct points in its history. Back in the mid-1960s, when the league was still working to get its feet under it, a player by the name of Masanori Murakami, a pitcher, was loaned from the Nankai Hawks, same team that is now playing in Fukuoka under SoftBank's ownership, to the San Francisco Giants. In 1964, on September 1st, Masanori Murakami became the first Japanese-born player to play in the majors. That said, the Giants wanted to keep him because he pitched so well. The Nankai Hawks said, no, we'd want him back, please. Given that there was a contractual disagreement, Murakami was able to stay with the Hawks up until the end of the 1965 season, then returning to Japan. This led to, in 1967, US and Japan having a gentleman's agreement basically saying, hands off our players, don't poach them, please. That got complicated in the 90s, and we have to point to a certain tornado wind-up pitcher by the name of Hideo Nomo. Nomo played for the Kintetsu Buffaloes, who merged in and are now part of the Orix Buffaloes organization. In the mid-90s, he wanted to leave the team, but he was not eligible for free agency.
Can I interrupt super quickly? Sorry. What? How did other American players end up in? Weren't there other players that ended up playing in either league though? Like were there
Yes,
not
foreign
Americans
players
who?
from the US would eventually show up in America, but those were not under contract by a major league team. They were
Okay,
free
okay,
agents.
okay. So anyone who was a free agent had the right to, but this is we're talking about players who are under contract now at this point.
Exactly.
Okie
And
dokie.
because of
Sorry.
that, because Hideo Nomo didn't have his free agency rights, he couldn't leave the Buffaloes organization
Right, right.
unless, as pointed out by his agent, he utilized a loophole. He voluntarily retired from NPB to terminate his contract with the Buffaloes and then immediately signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers
I love that
a
idea.
few months
Honestly,
later.
that's huge brain.
But it took a while for the posting system to take form because naturally NPB teams were not thrilled that now the floodgates could open again, and a couple of players did leak out, one of which being Alfonso Soriano, who got his career started with a team in the other league before joining the majors. What happened was in 1998, the posting system was in place that instead of these subterfuge negotiations going around legal terms, let's have it out in the open. Let's have major league players or major league teams bid on players who have not reached free agency, which takes 9 years in the NPB. And let's make sure that we use that funds, we use funds to say, look, sorry, you're losing one of your best players. Here's some money to offset that.
Yeah, not unlike maybe like the transfer system in European football, as it were.
Excellent example, yes. And although the amounts have fluctuated from year to year, I don't think anyone's going to quite match the winning bid of, say, a Daisuke Matsuzaka or a Yu Darvish, both Pacific League players, I might point out, which were $50 million back at those points. There are still valuable players to come over. It's just that now the posting fee is based on a sliding scale of their salaries, the deals they actually sign. So, for example, when Masataka Yoshida got posted, his winning bid is only going to be a portion of the $90 million 5-year contract that he signed with the majors. It wasn't known in advance.
But now Roki Sasaki, though, in theory, I mean, depending on how big that contract is, could that not break the posting record, do you think?
That is a potential thing. We may also see Sasaki wait until he hits age 25. Most players do wait until they are over the age of 25 so that in the majors they are not bound by international free agent salary restrictions.
Right.
Ohtani is a exception to that in that he left and only signed a minor league deal, albeit with a gigantic signing bonus, and why he's only going to become a free agent next season.
But there's so many people that I like talk to that when it comes to the posting system, like they just kind of get angry at the fact that their team has to spend additional money to acquire a talent, something that's been going on in professional sports in other countries around the world for quite a long time at this point. You'll see a lot of people talking about it, and they'll be soccer fans, and it's like, wait, you're a soccer fan and you're not aware of transfers? Like something
Okay,
that's so
that
normal.
doesn't make sense. That doesn't even add up.
Like you're like something that's so normal, like, yeah, I want to take your best player, here is some compensation, is somehow lost when it happens to ML. Like I don't get that. Like, why is it such an issue? And with the Murakami thing in soccer, and at least, and I don't know about maybe handball, some other big sports around the world, maybe even European basketball, loans happen all the time.
Yeah.
And oh, this player from Italy is getting loaned out to this team somewhere else. At no point do they ever sit there and go, I mean, I'm sure it's happened at least once, but do they go, no, we don't want to give him back. He's ours now. Oh, we got him for 10 games the rest of the season. Then okay, then we got him. It's just what happens. I have a friend that played in Singapore professionally, soccer. He got loaned out to Serbia. And once his time with Serbia was done, he went back to his normal team or his regular team. So I don't understand how this concept just gets so lost in translation. It really kind of boggles my mind.
Part of it has to do with where Major League Baseball was back in the 60s. Let's not forget the reserve clause was still in effect. It hadn't been challenged and hadn't been struck down by by arbitration. As a result, when you signed with a Major League club, you were bound by blood to them. You did not get free agency unless they cut you. So keep that in mind. That's the kind
That
of
is true,
environment that baseball in particular has been a part of. And to build off your point in regards to that compensation aspect, that's still in the major league game. That's why we have type A and type B free agents, so that if you sign a marquee free agent away from a smaller team, they at least get a compensation pick in the draft if the qualifying order has been assigned. In some seasons, that would even included cash compensation or giving up your draft pick to sign this player. Same thing in other pro sports where you have restricted free agents.
I was going to
say,
if
you
want
to offer them, hockey, for
them.
example, if you have a restricted free agent, you're going to give up draft picks if you actually sign this guy.
Yeah, so it's weird that people balk at it. It's all similar systems to do the same sort of thing. It's an attempted balance and parity, even when your teams have to. And that gets a lot harder when you're dealing with international sports, which is why I think European football or soccer, as it were, just keep it really basic in terms of it's money. Just you get the money. That's one thing or the other, right? It's the same thing with the posting system in Japan. Like, you can't give a Japanese team draft picks from America. That's not really the way it works, right? Just give them money, though. I mean, that works.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know every team's financials or whatever, but I do know that whatever posting fee they had to pay, they're probably going to make it back in jersey sales.
Yeah,
or at least any other merch, and within a couple of days of the season, I'll make it back.
Yeah, and if the player's good, they'll just make it back in and of itself, right? That's what they're there for.
Exactly. So I just had to rant. I don't know how why that gets lost on a lot of people.
It's not our money anyway.
But if anybody wants to give me any.
Well, I think that was a very good installation of our first History Corner. We'll see what subject we come up with next time. Now let's transition over to one of our other weekly segments, a little checkup on how Pacific Leaguers are doing in the MLB.
Well, I mentioned Masataka Yoshida. So far in May, he has 0 swings and misses.
Nice.
None at all. That's a first in the StatCast era. 16-game hitting streak. I think he got Player of the Week earlier. Yeah,
0 swings and misses. I just started thinking about that.
I regret to inform you, he did get one today.
Ah, darn.
At least one in the game. I don't know how many more there's been. He's 0 for 5 from what I can see.
When we talk about swings and misses, do you mean like striking out, swinging and missing, or he has not swung a bat without
without making contact?
That's insane.
He is the 6th player born in Japan to record a hitting streak of 16 plus games, joining a litany of other Pacific League players such as Nori Aoki, Shohei Ohtani, Sou Taguchi, Hideki Matsui, and 13 times by this one guy named Ichiro. You might have heard of him. He's been batting .438 during this hitting streak with a 1.229 OPS, only striking out 8.5% of the time. Everyone who follows Japanese baseball could have told you this was going to happen. And now you have the proof. Also, just happening earlier today, this is May 9th that we're recording this, by the way, Shohei Ohtani has recorded his 502nd strikeout as a pitcher, passing Babe Ruth on the all-time list.
Who else do we have? What's Yu Darvish been up to? He's on your fantasy team, right? How's that going?
The fantasy team? Oh, my injury
no,
is full to the rafters. You. Okay, sorry. Yu Darvish picked up a win in his most recent start against the LA Dodgers, going 6 2/3 innings, only allowing 1 run over that span and striking out 8.1 per 9. He's now 2-2 with a 3.19 ERA. Looks like he'll be getting the Twins for his next start this week.
Alrighty, so to wrap things up this week, before we get to the end of our show, let's do a quick around the league roundup from some ups and downs through the week and our opinions watching the teams. Gabe, let's start with you.
The Orix Buffaloes are back in first in the Pacific League, holding a 2-game lead over SoftBank and Lotte. They've won 7 of their last 10. The team is starting to put it together, and that includes earlier today when Hiroya Miyagi, the southpaw from Okinawa, put together a 4-hit shutout. I'm impressed by Tokumasa Chano, who's leading the league leading the team in average and hits and stolen bases. Where do Orix keep finding these guys? It's nice to see. Also nice to see was Frank Schwindel hitting his first home run of the season, and because it was the Katakana Jersey series, which, by the way, I covet that jersey. I want that. His jersey said on the back, Furanku za Tanku, Frank the Tank.
Ooh, that's fantastic. Okay, I need that.
Right? Exactly. With the Rakuten Golden Eagles, they are sort of muddling along, 5-5 their last 5 games. Like I previously mentioned, their veteran starters continue to be a bright spot for the team and the season. One issue with the team has been foreign player production. Unfortunately, that extends to injuries. Chris Gittins re-injured his hand. This time it's a left thumb injury in a farm team game that he was practicing in. He's going to be out for another month at least. So that means Michael Franco will continue to be one of the big sticks alongside Asamura, and Gittins will be a little while yet.
Oh, there we go. And Michael, what have you been watching this week?
Oh yeah, nippon-ham, where are they at? So one of the questions that I had that I keep seeing people bring up online is Shinjo, is he going to be here next season? Is he just going to be a transitional manager during, their alleged rebuild phase? Or, how much longer does he have before, management just says, hey, we want to get back into A class, do something about it.
Yeah.
And one interesting thing that happened that we didn't touch on yet is Gosuke Kato, as Gabe put last week. It was the reverse posting where they signed him, or he went in the NPB draft.
Yep, he was drafted from the New York Mets farm system. It's the first time that's ever happened.
So he was out with an injury at the beginning of the year. He returned to active duty with the farm team. He's still working on a full recovery. He only had 2 at-bats, when hitless in both of them. But, he's making progress, and they hope to get him back, in full strength at some point. And of course, the injured top team lineup is causing, the manager Shinjo to shuffle his lineup around more so than he already does. And Go Matsumoto is currently out with injury. I don't remember what the injury was. And I
think it was left wrist.
And do we know how long he's out on that one?
No, my understanding is day to day.
Still, you don't want to lose that, that bad at all.
Last year's batting title winner. Yeah, absolutely.
No, he's fantastic.
And that's all I got on that.
And for me, as usual, I've been keeping an eye on the Marines and the Lions. I don't know why, I just always somehow end up watching Lions games. And I've often joked with people that I could open my own gambling line betting service where listen to what I say and then bet on the opposite, because you'll be right almost all the time. And last week I was saying Polanco and Nakamura were off to bad starts with the Marines. Then Polanco is now leading the team in home runs and scored the winning home run in the 10th inning of the game last week. And Nakamura went 4 for 4 yesterday, getting 4 RBI. So, there we go. They're doing great. And then on the Lions side, I said the team was generally impressing me and I thought they're about to go on a run. They proceeded to lose, I think, every game last week. And I was saying I was really impressed with Tatsuya Imai, who got slapped around for 9 hits and 6 runs the other night. So, again, anything I say, just bet against it. That's probably what's going to happen. And that kind of brings us to the end of the show, more or less, unless there's anything else you guys want to do. We've still got a couple minutes.
Do we have enough time to take a question from our
Oh my
previous
goodness,
commentary?
yes, I always forget because I am a silly goose.
I got our question from How About No 3108. Who is the best player in Pacific League history and best to never sign with a U.S. team? Because those may end up being the same answer depending on who you ask.
Yeah. Wow.
My answer would have to be Katsuya Nomura, if you're going with one who never played with the U.S. team.
That is a solid response. For those, like the counting stats alone are impressive. Almost 3,000 hits, 657 RBI home runs, almost 2,000 RBIs. Yeah, so he's been impressive, and he did all that as a primary catcher over 26 seasons and a 5-time MVP award.
And if you were going to go with somebody that did play in MLB, I mean, I'd say the only answer as of right now, and that's right now because Ohtani's still playing, you'd have to go Ichiro, I would think.
I think you could make a case for Yuki Yanagita getting into that top 100 or that top spot in time. He has been capital D dominant in every league that he's played. But then he also probably is not going to end up in the US simply because he's signed long-term in Japan.
But then I think the question kind of, I guess, it's sort of a different ways to think of the question, right? Is it the best player to ever play in the Pacific League or the best Pacific League player? Because yes, Nagita is definitely accomplished more in the Pacific League, but really overall career talent-wise and production. I mean, Ichiro is like unquestionable, I
If I have
think.
to separate them between never played in MLB and one that did go to MLB, then my answer is going to be Nomura and then, Ichiro for the other one.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I think the answer will end up being Roki Sasaki.
Bold call.
Though, you know who I think, weird way to take the question, but potential could have been if their career, if they stayed in the Pacific League the whole time and their arm didn't fall off. Daisuke Matsuzaka, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, you watch early Daisuke, he's phenomenal. It's absolutely awe-inspiring how good he was. Yeah, in an ideal world where he stays at the lines the whole time, they probably win another 20 million championships. And
Named a whole generation after him.
yeah, exactly.
Be sure to like and subscribe for more English content. Sign up with Pacific League TV for live game broadcasts, including interleague and farm teams. For viewers in the US or Canada, watch PL games with English commentary on FTF Sports, Tuesday through Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, or without commentary on WatchDingo.com simulcasts under the Baseball Network.
Thank you as always for that outro, Gabe, and thank you for listening all the way through to the show. As always in YouTube land, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll join you next week for the podcast. Take care.